All right, you guys, we are live. Thank you for tuning in to the IOPPS Indigepreneur show starring myself, Nathan, all the way from Red Pheasant, Saskatchewan, and to my left with the high five. Who are you?
Needle all the way from Mist Wasses, but just got back to Edmonton from Calgary, where I was for the last couple of days. Some
Awesome,
meetings
awesome.
downtown Calgary. So, yeah, it went over pretty
Awesome.
good.
Awesome, you guys. Before we get started, don't forget to check out my website, iops.ca, for your daily job postings. And hey, maybe join my other show and all the other good stuff. But we got a good show tonight. We have a guest who is a CEO of. Where's the CEO?
National Aboriginal.
The National Aboriginal Capital Corporation Association, otherwise known as NACA for short. NACA. So we're going to bring them on, and we're going to get right to the chase. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. Gino, did you change your privacy to public?
That's what I'm doing.
All right, we're going to bring them on anyway. I'd like to you guys to welcome Shannon. I'm not even going to say Shannon. Welcome, Shannon.
My name is Shannon Natadawabin.
Nice to have you on the show, Shannon. Shannon, I think I know where that little feedback's coming from. You had your mic on, you changed it right on. Okay, good. What I'm starting to notice is people bring on those like the earphones with their little mics there. It catches a lot of feedback. But anyway, welcome Shannon to the show. If you guys want to add Shannon, we are live on LinkedIn right now. There's Shannon's information. Like I said, he is the CEO of National Aboriginal Capital Corporation Association. Once again, Shannon, thank you for joining the show. So our show tonight, I know, Shannon, you were watching my IOPS morning show, and that's kind of how you're here right now. So thank you. But basically, can you tell us exactly what you do? Sorry. I'm looking at the screen right now.
This is a good way to introduce the National Aboriginal Capital Corporations Association. Was created after the first Aboriginal financial institutions were created in Canada. They've been doing business for more than 35 years. There's more than 59 of them from coast to coast to coast. So they provide loans for businesses, and they also provide an equity program that provides some non-repayable to your business that you're going to be starting. And our map on our website provides you with the closest member to where you're located in Canada, and that's the group that you should follow up with if you're interested in starting a business, because they help you from the very beginning until you submit your application.
Yeah, we're going to definitely show that. I think we're just before we started here, Shannon was showing me the map. You want me to show it now, and then we can discuss later on what that all means? Shannon?
If the viewers want to see them, if the viewers want to see the map, our members cover all of Canada from the coast to coast to coast. We have Inuit members in the far north. We have Métis members all across Canada, and we have specific Métis Aboriginal financial institutions. We also have First Nation financial institutions, and a number of them they provide to all Indigenous groups. So they're very, very diverse with who they service. They ensure that Indigenous people have an opportunity to start a business, and we've processed to date close to $3 billion in lending, and
wow,
approaching 50,000 loans. So they've been doing all this work with very little capital, if you can call it. They started with 250 million that the government invested over 35 years ago, and they've recycled it about 12 to 15 times now. So they keep on using that money over and over again, helping Indigenous people start their businesses.
So if you guys are wherever you are in Canada looking, like even way up here, where is that? Northwest Territories, all the way down to in the Nova Scotia area. Anywhere in this map? Oh, there's nothing in Alberta, or
No, there's lots of Alberta. You just have to zoom in on it. There's more, a couple of those spots you'll have more than one. There's about 3 of them in Edmonton alone.
oh, okay. Oh, there we go. Oh, I have to zoom in. But anyway, here's you guys. Here's the spots. Do you want me to zoom in more? Or?
So
Yeah,
the
actually,
AFIs were created.
yeah.
You gotta zoom in on, let's say, Edmonton or something like that. You'll see.
Yeah, so there's the Alberta.
Saskatchewan.
I know Saskatchewan, we have SEAF.
Yeah,
So there's
Seaf
the
is
Alberta
one there.
Indian. So this is Edmonton, the Alberta Indian Investment Corp. And
Yeah.
Settlement Investment Corp.
Yeah, and
the
Bistousan
Métis.
is the Métis.
Oh, isn't that cool? And I know we have one. I know we have SEAF. Is SEAF the only one in Saskatoon? Yeah, it is.
Let's for First Nations. We got a couple of Métis in Saskatoon as well. Then we
Oh, the
have
Gabriel.
some members way up in the far north as well.
Huh.
Got Beaver River, Visions North.
So you guys can go to nacca.ca and check this map out. It's basically shows where you guys can talk to institutions if you want to start a business. So let's get into that. Let's get into, because there's a lot of people right now that COVID is rushing, I guess. And I hate bringing up COVID, but I like to bring up COVID for all the good it's done. And I hate to say it, but it's done good. It's done a lot of good, even though we don't want to admit it. And it's pushing a lot of things forward that we, would be 10 years down the road, but here we are now. And I think that's one of the things that is getting pushed forward is Indigenous people getting into entrepreneurship and finding that money fast. So can you explain to me the whole process of just how that works?
The financing or the business process? Sorry,
The business process, the financing, any of it, all of it, because we have a lot of people watching that are interested in that.
Yeah, no, there's people at the different levels of entrepreneurship. Lots of people are thinking about it. Some people have actually done some homework and thought about their ideas. Some people have actually done some web searches and looked for financing. Lots of people have gone to the banks and got no's already. This is why the AFIs were created. It was because a lot of our people were getting no's and doors shut on their faces everywhere. We've got these barriers that are unique. We have
I'm in a perfect example. Sorry.
Yeah, you know what? We don't have generational wealth. Our families were barred from having wealth, and so we don't have any of those connections to have equity. There's just so many barriers for our people. So that's why they created this network. It provides an opportunity for an Indigenous person to come with their idea, what they want to do, talk to a business development officer to talk through what they need to do to get prepared. We're developing some online tools that allows an Indigenous entrepreneur just to start filling out their own business plan. So we're going to have an online business planner that's going to allow you to go at your own pace, and then you can bring that business plan to a Aboriginal financial institution when you're ready, and then they can work it through a little bit more to understand when they can provide some financing to it. Because ultimately it's all about financing, right? But for me, when I assisted almost 250 Indigenous businesses when they go through that process, right? A lot of people they need to just go through the process to understand the market, to understand what their revenue potential is, understand all the expenses, because you gotta weigh everything to make sure that it's going to make sense, right? And then when you put it all down on paper and you feel pretty confident about it, that's when you have a good idea. I always tell people do the cash flow first, figure out what your revenues are going to be, what your expenses are going to be, and see if it makes sense. Because maybe that first idea is not really a good idea. Maybe you need to think of another idea. So it's always that trial and error of what's going to work in my community, because for the first 30 years, a lot of the Indigenous businesses that started were more of service businesses that supported the community. And now we're starting to see more businesses that are looking outside the community in the market of Canada or even beyond Canada. You know, manufacturing with COVID, that's what's introducing manufacturing back to Canada. For Indigenous people, that's going to be an opportunity for us on our lands. We're the biggest landholders in all of Canada. If you consider all the little reserves and you put them together, that's still land. But our traditional territories, that's where our strength is, right? 275 court cases say we have rights and title to our traditional territories. Anybody wants to do business in Canada, they have to deal with our people. They have to engage our people early and often, and include us in the prosperity. I've been talking about prosperity for a while. We need to bring the original prosperity of our people back, because we used to have it, we lost it with contact, and now it's time for us to get prosperity back.
So how long has NACA been around for, did you say? About 35 years?
Well, NACA, the association, is we're working on 23 years, I believe, is our anniversary. That the AFI network is about 35 years old. They started with only 6 of them. Almost like the hockey thing, is the original 6, and then you start adding all the other ones. So now we're covered all across the country. So there's not a part of Canada where you can't go, where you can't find an Aboriginal financial institution to help you out. But it's just a matter of reaching out. Like right now, you might have heard that there's support for businesses that are impacted by COVID. It's our Aboriginal financial institution network that's delivering that money. It's a $40,000 financing package. It's $30,000 loan and $10,000 non-repayable. And right now, you might have heard a couple of days ago where Minister Ng has just announced that they've upped that to 60 grand for the Canada Emergency Business Account. We're mirroring that program. So now it's going to be 60 grand, right?
So the money is available right now? That 40 grand is available right now? Because I heard, and sorry for interrupting.
It is.
It's available right now. So now on top of the 40, you're adding another 20.
Well, we're working on it right now. Like, they've already announced it for the CEBA, which is all the general measures for all of Canadians through BDC and other financial institutions. Well, we worked really hard to make sure we had an Indigenous version of a support program, and they kind of mirrored that same program for us. It really needs to be more. It needs to be modified a little bit more to be more beneficial to our community, but I'm working on that to try to improve the non-repayable portion, because 40% of our businesses said they can't afford any more loans. They already took a loan to start the business, or they already took
a loan for the loan for the loan.
Exactly. So and now they're being asked to survive COVID, but they're given a loan, even though it's no interest over 4 years, and they don't have to start repaying it for a year. It's still a loan at the end of the day. So we're trying to improve those conditions.
So is that something that NACA does on behalf of, I don't know, like, is it all First Nations, or is it Métis as well, and Inuit? Is that something that NACA does, kind of negotiate those head agreements with the federal government and then administer them, I guess, on behalf of the federal government?
Yeah, that's correct. I've been working really hard for the past few years trying to improve our access to capital, because that's the biggest strategic priority that was given to me by the board. So last March, Indigenous Growth Fund. So it's the Indigenous Growth Fund is going to be $160 million fund. It's going to have the Business Development Bank of Canada, the government, and the economic, the EDC, the Farm Credit Corporation. They're all going to participate to provide us with access to capital, $160 million fund, which is going to be lent out to our AFI network, because they've been so good at turning over that capital. They just need more access to low-cost capital so that they can help more of our people. So we're going to be launching that Indigenous Growth Fund, and then we also got this Emergency Response Fund. We're also working on an agricultural program. We're also working on a procurement strategy, because the biggest opportunity right now is contracts with the federal government. It's been less than 1% for Indigenous businesses for 35 years. The recent mandate letters said that they have to have a minimum of 5% target for Indigenous businesses. That equates to about $1 billion in worth of contracts. So there's a lot of opportunity there, but it's such a broken system. There's so many more barriers internally. Managers approving an Indigenous contract, it just doesn't happen. We got to make sure that that does happen, right? So we're doing a lot of work to try to improve and provide opportunities.
No, that's probably one of the biggest things, looking at the supply chain procurement strategies. I don't know, like, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. It seems like the Indigenous inclusion is always an afterthought. So it's encouraging that you guys are front and center. Just curious as to the First Nations Financial Authority. Do you see them kind of playing a role or being complementary to NACA?
Well, First Nation Financial Authority is another mechanism to provide access to capital. They issue bonds on the market, and they sell them out in the market, and they attract low interest capital, which they in turn lend communities for infrastructure projects. I know that they're going to be expanding their criteria to allow communities to look at economic development opportunities. That's another option for access to capital, and I'm really excited for them to expand their services in this area. So the more options we have for access to capital, the better we're going to be, because there's some projects, just like, let's say the average colonizer, they have generational wealth from family in the back, and they have bank accounts, they've got bonds, they've got RRSPs, they've got a lot of money. And whenever there's an opportunity put in front of you, they have that capital, they could take advantage of that. But our people, we never have opportunity to take advantage of these opportunities that give us an opportunity to double or triple that money. So we're out of this game. The whole financial system, the whole colonized system was created to exclude us. We weren't even supposed to be here. So we're resilient just to be here. And now we've got to find a way to play in this game, right?
I just want to get in here real quick. I can't see the name here, but it says, how does one apply for the funds?
Again, just go to our page, naca.ca. I'm not sure where you're located, but there's an AFI in your area. You got to contact them. You get the application from them. You speak to their development officer, and they'll go through your eligibility of your business and work through getting you a loan.
For what it's worth, I did look into it, and it is a pretty easy process. It's not that cumbersome, and the turnaround time, I understand, is like a week or something, eh? It's pretty quick turnaround time.
I wouldn't put any timelines on the turnaround, because each one of those dots on there, those are individual businesses. Those are AFIs, and they're their own entity. So they have their process of due diligence, and they have their process of going to the board and development officers. It depends on how many they have in their office to do these assessments. So it could vary across the country, but they try to get through and providing the services as quickly as possible.
I was just making reference to that $40,000 emergency loan.
Yeah, no, even for that, like it's for that, you really need to demonstrate your cash flow for the past couple of years. So show them what your business was before. Then for this past year is what they're trying to support you during COVID. So they want to see what sort of expenses that you would have had on a cash flow for the whole year, and they're giving you a loan based on that. Oh,
so you wouldn't get that full 40? It's just up to 40.
No, you would get that 40, but you got to show that these are all the expenses that you have throughout the year on a month-to-month basis for 12 months. Show it all.
And now they tacked on another 20, so now it's 60. but you're waiting to.
Yeah, well, now, you know what? When they first started this, they never anticipated going this long, right? They thought that
No.
maybe the COVID would be sort of sorting itself out by the end of the summer, but now we're getting in the second wave, so it's really expanding. So I think the 20 is basically just to take us to a certain point, but we're still going to have to figure out, like, this is just getting through COVID. This is the emergency response. Never mind
Yeah.
about full recovery after this is all over. That's going to need another program in itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, like COVID is just pushing everything quicker, and it's getting a lot of Indigenous people to start doing their crafts and whatever they got going on to try and make some money during this downtime. But it's also, like I said, opening the doors for a lot of entrepreneurship is exactly where you guys come in. And now I'm so glad, because I want to try apply. I was gonna apply for that money too, but now hey man, I'm glad it's even bumping up even higher. So if you guys are really interested, go to nacca.ca and then you can check it out, and then you go to AFI link, and then it's on the map there where you guys, the nearest one too, they're right across Canada. When you click on it, there's nothing in Alberta, but you got to zoom in, and then you'll start seeing them all.
Hey, Shannon, just thinking outside the box here is that, you look at the international markets and how we're so dependable on them for the energy sector. What's happening in the States really impacts Canada. What's your thoughts on looking at attracting foreign investors into Canada?
Well, foreign investors fleed Canada because of the uncertainty that we as Indigenous people, because of the 275 court cases and us standing up and saying, hell no, that created a little bit of uncertainty in development. There's about $340 billion of resource projects in the north. If like that's the potential in the future. Never mind, that's all that they've sort of explored so far. So what we're seeing now is if international corporations that want to do business in Canada, if they approached us rather than just coming and going through the government, they would have a lot more success in creating some opportunities than going through the regular system. And I think people are starting to get that with some of these projects that have spent $1 billion and then it didn't go anywhere because, hey, hold on, there's a blockade. We should have engaged these guys early on and maybe made them part equity partners in this project. That would make a lot more sense. And I think everybody's getting that idea now. It's not just a simple IBA anymore. Give us jobs and some business opportunities and some training. It's not that anymore. That's the basic minimum. We're now beyond that, where we're equity partners. If you want to extract that resource on our lands, we're going to be partners in that. That's our resource. And we want some benefits that'll sustain our community in the future, right?
So is that something, I don't know, just thinking about the role that NACA could play in a situation like that. Is that something that you guys are entertaining right now, is attracting or approaching the international economies, I guess, and looking at countries? As he just says, that when they're starting to look at Canada, I was in Ottawa about 2 years ago, and one of my past colleagues, when I used to work in justice, is now looking after consultation for the federal government. And that's exactly what he said, is that they'll phone Ottawa first to say, okay, what's happening in Quebec? What's happening in Manitoba? What's happening in BC? And they try to get a pulse on the lay of the land, saying, okay, how much risk is involved? And to me, it's not rocket science. Like, why wouldn't they approach the Indigenous communities? If we're a sovereign nation within a nation, how can we use that as leverage to benefit us when we're the ones with the resources?
Yeah, the world is full of capital. There's no lack of capital in the whole entire globe. There's so much money in the globe right now that equity firms are looking for places to be able to earn an interest and build their equity. So they always look for places. They buy companies, they flip them, and they make them earn money. Like, they're looking for places all over the place to ensure that they can keep on growing their money, right? The only place that's kind of untouched is Indigenous community. There's no investment in our community. So right now, for social impact investors, that's a place that they're targeting, is is trying to get into the Indigenous communities. So you're seeing intermediaries like NACA that'll be able to connect capital to our communities. We're starting to provide these sort of connections, and we had a conference 2 years now. It's called the Indigenous Prosperity Forum. So that's what it's all about. It's about bringing capital together with our community. So we invite community, our Aboriginal Financial Institution Network, because they, within their regions, they know the projects that are going on, right? So they're the intermediaries of that regional area. So when you come to this conference, or when you come to conferences like that, we're building up that roster of more international or local money that is looking to invest in our community. So we probably, we're making better and better connections, and then having access to capital is not going to be a big problem in the future, because we're going to be able to make those connections. It's going to be more about building up the capacity in our communities so we can actually launch these opportunities.
What's interesting is about 13 years ago, I went on a trade mission to China with the Premier of Saskatchewan, just as an Aboriginal rep, and I went along. It was quite an experience. But one of the things that I was supposed to have done is for CEIF is to put together a position paper on identifying how you can attract foreign capital. And what I did was that I sat on this Chinese immigration company board for about 4 years, and there was we had people applying to be immigrants in Saskatchewan coming from China, and my job was to identify their background and see if we can make a fit for Saskatchewan. So there was a potential Chinese immigrant coming in Saskatchewan, and if their background's making shoes, is there somebody in Saskatchewan that made shoes? Because they would not only bring capital to under the immigration nominee program, but they would also bring the market. And the position paper I did was that what would happen if the immigration nominee program was to go through the AFI? And then, I looked at a business case, and it varies from province to province, the amount of equity that an individual needs to even qualify or make a submission. But if it's 500,000, and if you had to give that back after 5 years, how much would it take for that money to be paid back through a GIC or bonds and that? And I think the number came out was about 386,000. And I was like, okay, well, if you have 386,000 and you need to pay need that over 5 years, you got 114,000. What could the AFI do with that then? And I just thought there was a really good opportunity there. So
there's little pockets of opportunities like that all over the place when you think about access to capital. A big place where we're losing access to capital right now is even just with learning bonds. Canada supports 40%. They basically match the money that you put into a learning bond. In our communities right now, they don't open up learning bonds for their students or their youth on their communities. So it's a lost opportunity. It's like money is being lost just by not opening up these accounts. And,
what is a learning bond?
Well, a learning bond is an instrument that allows you to just to invest into a bond, so that by the time your kid's 18, then they can go to post-secondary education, and then the Canadian government matches that your contribution. So it's like if you're missing out on the government's contribution, and you're not getting anything. And then at the end of the day, then the 30 kids that get supported from a First Nation, and then 100 of them don't get any support whatsoever. Like, that's the case. That's the reality in our communities. Only 30 are getting supported to go to post-secondary, and 100 of them are given no's. We got to think about, maybe we should open learning bonds for all our kids. Take advantage of this money that the government can put in. That's another example, like you're talking about with the immigrants. Like, why shouldn't immigrants be able to invest? Why is it given to Canada? Why isn't it given to maybe social impact groups like ours, so we can invest in our community, because they're coming to our land, right?
And I don't know, if I had a minute with Perry Bellegarde, that's probably something I would convey to him, is that, you know what, Perry, here we are, we're the original people of this land. How come we have no influence or say or involvement as to what immigrants come into this country? 140 years ago, that was understandable, but it's 2020 and COVID, so times have changed.
You know, it probably takes just it probably takes a little bit of push and advocacy to make sure that there's a pot of money being created with immigration. Why couldn't some of that come to the Indigenous community to utilize? Because it's only using it for a short period of time and giving it back, or
Yeah.
some sort of system could be set up, right? Yeah.
I'm just thinking about those loans right now. Still, sorry, man, my mind's running. I was like, I got to get out there and go apply for them because I've been putting it off for so long. And yeah, I thought it was. Yeah, I'm going there tomorrow. Excited about
Yeah.
those $60,000
Well,
loans.
you know our regular loans, like if you're just starting a business, the AFIs provide a portion of equity, and they provide loans, and communities are even provided with loans, so they're able to help any size business, and it's called developmental lending, which is supposed to be small and medium sized, but for our community, it's kind of like micro and small businesses, because 85% of the businesses that we support have less than 5 people working for them. Whereas, you know, the definition that Canada uses is something like 500 and less, 500 people and less, but we only have 5 people, right? Most of our businesses are small.
Yeah. No.
So, just wondering, Shannon, how long have you been with NACA for now?
I think I'm going to be working on my 5th year coming up.
So who is Shannon Methwabin before that?
So Shannon is from Fort Albany First Nation. I'm from James Bay. So James Bay is Northern Ontario, Mushkego Cree. I work for First Nations Technical Services before that, and before that I was with De Beers Group of Companies. So I worked for a mine as a manager of sustainability and Indigenous affairs. Worked out Vancouver, and I used to work for Wabatech and Industry Canada, delivering the Aboriginal Business Canada program, because there's still an equity program. It provides, so if you're going to be starting a business, you'll get partial loan and partial equity if you're eligible for that program, and if you're starting a business. So that's what I used to deliver way back in the day. So I've helped about 250 businesses.
So that's going to be a lot of our people watching tonight. Is like you said, there are a lot of entrepreneurs, but there's so many people out there that don't have a clue what to do from point one, day one. If they walk into one of these, I'm going to use for Saskatchewan, SEEF, Saskatchewan Indian Equity Foundation, would they show them from point A to point Z, or is it point A to point B and you got to figure out the rest?
I don't know. If I was an entrepreneur and I was given advice right now, I'd say do some research first on your idea. What is it that you want to do? If you don't really have a clue about that, then maybe you should take an entrepreneurship class or something where you can learn that. And some of these AFIs, they provide some classes in there so that you can learn about it, or the local college will do that. They'll work you through your thinking process. The big part of a business is the market. Where are you going to make your money? So if you can figure out where you're going to make your money, then you can figure out the expenses, because the less you put out in expenses, the more you're going to make. So it's all a little bit of a research game, and if you bring a well thought out idea with some drafts of what you think you're going to make within a certain area, like with COVID, what's happening right now is a lot of people are going online. You were talking about craft businesses and those types of things. Well, there's a lot of online systems right now where you can sell your stuff, right? Shopify and those types of things. I think we're seeing a transition where people are doing that right now, because everybody relied on face-to-face before. Now we've got to think of a whole different way of doing businesses. Lots of the tourism business that relied on people to come to their territories. Now all of a sudden nobody's going to be traveling for a little while. So everybody's having to really think about what are we going to do? Like all the food, the fast food places are now doing delivery. That's huge right now. So it's all about thinking, how are we going to deal with what we have in front of us right now, and how we're going to do things different.
And that's why I said COVID is pushing us forward, even though we don't think it is, but it's pushing us forward quick. And I always talk about I don't know. I always bring up Elon Musk because he's gonna bring the internet. I love bringing him up because he's bringing the internet, and we're gonna be getting here hopefully in the next few months, and everybody, all the indigenous communities are gonna be back to high speed. Are you guys prepared for that influx of people that are going to be coming in? And it's going to be in droves because once that internet hits, everyone's going to be having access to finally do, like what cities can do, like, sitting at home with the fast internet, right? Like everyone
Mhm.
upgrade from the Northwest Territories all the way down to, Navajo country. They just shared an article where the Navajo Nation, I think they're like 48 miles or something. I don't know what that is in kilometers, but 48 miles just from like Washington, like a city. And they've never, their internet was just pretty much next to none. Starlink came and gave them an example to use, and then now they're all just, high speed internet, and all the kids are back online and doing this. But I mean, it's going to be pushing indigenous business so far ahead. Are we ready for that pace? I guess what I'm getting to. Are you guys ready
Well,
to like?
20 years ago, Industry Canada had a Connecting Canadians initiative where they talked about connecting every Canadian within a certain period of time. So we were talking about all the satellites and then the technology at the time. So we had these visions that we were all going to be connected and have the best high speed. So the ideas back then were call centers, anything web related, businesses like that. Those kinds of things are still relevant today. Like as soon as everybody gets connected, you're going to have better tools. You're going to have better access to research. You're going to have better opportunities to work from home and sell from home. So I
Mhm.
think there's going to be a lot of isolated communities like mine. James Bay, well, actually they have high speed there, but they have one of those transmission lines. But lots of other communities don't. They've had
Yeah,
satellites and they've had other dial-up. I don't know if the people are still on dial-up, but you know,
might as well
Elon
be with
Musk.
some of the internet speeds we get.
Exactly. It's gonna provide, a few people in that community that all of a sudden has high speed. They're gonna have an idea of a business that they can do to connect. So yeah, we're ready to support them. If they approach our EFIs, then they're gonna help them.
Yeah,
What's
because
interesting, Shane? Oh, sorry, go ahead,
no,
Nate.
go ahead, bro. Go ahead. I was just gonna
No,
keep going on. So I was
oh,
just gonna say, and then Gino can take over. Is like I know it's coming. I know that influx is coming, and I keep telling everyone to get ready because that internet's coming. And when it does come, everyone's gonna get onto their either from a small craft business to who knows what they got dreaming going on, and it's all gonna be web based, like online, and like are you guys promoting yourself hard enough to come, like for everyone to go to you guys for help, for financial help and loans?
Well, I got to tell you the truth. It's hard to market support that's not really there. We've had a problem with access to capital for a decade and a half. We haven't had new capital put into the system to allow all our AFIs to provide the loans to every entrepreneur that comes to them. They've always
Mm-hmm.
had to wait for loans to be repaid before they approve another one. Some of them are really in bad shape where they have to take lines of credits in order to issue more loans. So there's always been a problem with access to capital. And that's why we're launching this Indigenous Growth Fund so that we have access to capital. It'll be $160 million to start. And it's anticipated that social impact investment are also going to be also investing into that growth fund. And then
Oh,
we'll put all
okay.
that money to work in the community, right? So it's about scaling up to meet what you're talking about, a wave of business opportunity. Well, I think we'll be able to meet the needs of that wave of business opportunity. And right now we're trying to get the government to understand that for over the past 20 years, the support program that we have in place has been declined by 70%. So the trajectory of the government support for Indigenous business has gone down 70%. So that equity program I talked about used to be an 80
Yeah.
million program back in the 90s, and now it's $21 million between everybody. So it's been reduced a lot. If we had more, then we can help a lot more communities. So we're making a business case right now for the government to support us at the levels that we need, if not get us back to the traditional funding levels that we used to be at. So every Indigenous business will get support.
Yeah, back in the day, they used to have that major opportunities fund that was administered through INAC, and I think it was up to $3 million for some of those bigger projects. It's too bad that's still not around. The comment I wanted to make, Shannon, is you were alluding to some of the Supreme Court decisions and how they've always kind of favored First Nations people. And I talked about looking at attracting international investors. Instead of attracting international investors, how about starting out with our relatives to the south of the medicine line? And I know that up here in Canada, we're pretty resource rich. And down in the States, they got a lot of big manufacturing and a lot of casinos. You look at Seminole Tribe, you look at the tribes down in California. Has anybody ever figured out what leverage and opportunities that a First Nation would have through taxation? I don't like a excise tax always comes to mind. And seeing if there's, oh, Nathan, take another deep breath there.
No, I thought I was going to sneeze. Go ahead.
And looking at how a person might be able to facilitate that engagement, I guess, with our relatives to the south. And just because, is there something there that maybe even through the Jay Treaty that we might be able to explore and kind of use as leverage?
Yeah, I think that's always being explored because is it the Indigenous Trade Investment Association? They've been doing some trade conferences down in Choctaw, talking about how do we test this whole tribal trade between over the borders, because we do have opportunities. We do have that Jay Treaty that needs to be respected. Mm-hmm. Because of our dual citizenship, there's opportunity for our people up here to be eligible for some of the contracts that are legislated into the U.S. And they've got some big contracts. Talk about the $1 billion here. That's a lot of money down there. So you know what? There all these areas of opportunity definitely need to be explored more. And I think as we get into the future, and because of the social impact, you guys got to understand. One of our AFIs did a study, and for every Indigenous person that starts a business, their health indicators are improved by 30%. Talk about the savings for the government on 30% improvement in health. Mental health indicators are 52% improvement, and then life satisfaction is 72% just for starting a business. Never mind that the family income doubles just by starting a business, and then those are all savings that the government has. So that's why I always talk about this. $1 invested in an Indigenous business brings back $1.42 to the Treasury Department. So whenever I'm out there talking to the government, I'm saying this is an investment. You need to invest more into the Indigenous community, because going forward, this is what I tell everybody. There's no prosperity for Canada unless there's prosperity for Indigenous people because of 275 court cases. So if you think that foreign investment is going to come back anytime soon, it's not unless you include us.
Interesting. I think about when you start looking at the economy and some of the initiatives that are being done across the country. And lady comes to mind is Caroline Hilton with that initiative that she has on the go. And man, to me, it's mind-boggling. But at the same time, I'm not a politician, and maybe one day I will be. But again, if I had a minute with Perry Bellegarde, I'd say, how come nobody's ever challenged the 1930 Natural Resources Transfer Agreement? And when you look at the impact that would have, I was talking with an economist at the University of Alberta, and he assessed within Treaty 6 alone that there's about $6 trillion worth of resources in Treaty 6 alone. And if we entertain what a resource revenue sharing agreement would look like, we would never have to worry about anything. But that's be the easy ticket out. But at the same time, there's not one First Nation that has challenged that. And that's been around for 70 years.
Yeah, I know that in Thunder Bay, the Anishinaabe Nation sent a bill to the Ontario government doing something like that. Because you know what, if you take a look at the amount of resources extracted off our territory, that's our natural capital that's been eroded over the centuries, right? And you know what? There's not one developed nation that hasn't got rich off of our lands, right? And so this is I went to Paris, France last year, and there's this organization for economic cooperation and development, and they basically have a bunch of nations that work together, right? And they all have these committees, and they're all trying to work together, and they're all part of this group, and it's an economic development organization. It's the first time that Indigenous people were allowed in there, and we presented to all of them, and we said, you know, that you guys have eroded our natural capital, and you guys are rich and wealthy. It's time to start thinking about Indigenous people whenever you're making decisions at these tables. So we need the Indigenous lens brought into these decisions and this planning that you're doing, because there's 350 million Indigenous people across the world. Never mind just Canada and the United States. There's Australia, there's New Zealand, and then there's Africa, and you know,
Sami and Norway.
Sami, and there's Indigenous people all over. And then as soon as we start to connect, then we'll have the capital and the clout, because we have the natural capital, because that's what everybody's always after, is the land, right?
Mm-hmm.
It always ends up being the land.
Yeah, that's what it boils down to. And when you look at all the big projects, they're in our backyards. And why we should be the ones controlling it. It boggles my mind why we're not there yet. And then, like, I think that, you know, when you start looking at access capital, government in Alberta with Premier Jason Kenney, I don't know, like, he's pretty controversial kind of guy, but the one good thing that he did was that Alberta Indigenous Opportunities Corporation and identified that $1 billion government-backed loans. And about 3 weeks ago, there were 6 First Nations that were investors, provided equity, some skin in the game on that power generation Cascade project. 93 million out of a $1.5 billion project. You know what? You got to start somewhere. Those 6 First Nations are going to start generating revenue that we cannot go back to the federal governments or provincial governments saying we need more, we need more. We've been doing that for 140 years. We'll never relinquish the federal government to their fiduciary responsibility to First Nations, but at the same time, they'll never give us enough. And that's why I think by having the own source revenue, that we could start building 50 homes a year instead of 5. That's why we could start paving some of our roads. That's why we could all get hockey rinks. And we could start providing those opportunities that the mainstream society has taken for advantage. I don't know, like, if you grew up in your community, Shannon, as Nathan and I did, the poverty that we experienced, unbelievable. But it was the normal, right? In this day and age, it's no longer acceptable and it's no longer normal. So I think that we really need to step up to the plate, we as Indigenous people, not only of Canada, but around the world, and saying, hey, we're going to take our rightful place. And it's no longer those impact benefit agreements that you mentioned in the opening. It's looking at major equity. And you know what? Maybe we take control and ownership, full ownership of some of those developments.
Yeah, I'd like to see that for sure. I think it's not too far off. I think we're going to have communities owning outright and hiring their local communities to do everything. You know, in the mine that I was working at, the Beers, Victor, all the local communities were the best miners in the world. You know, they trained and they worked through the levels, and they were mining just like anybody else. Like, our people are quick learners. We're very resilient. We'll do whatever to be sustainable, and you see that just with the area that where I was working.
And what's interesting, Shannon, it's not only in that industry, it's almost in every single industry. As soon as you're Indigenous, you show up on job site, you have to work twice as hard than anybody else. And you look at some of these people, and we were talking about that same thing downtown Calgary today, and how nepotism is so big in the different industries and energy, oil and gas, and it's always somebody's nephew or somebody that's moving up. And the Indigenous people are the ones that are busting their butts and working hard, but they work twice as hard, but still they're not good enough to rise up that corporate ladder. Downtown Calgary, if you look at the executive there, how many people are Indigenous? You could probably count on one hand.
That's a problem.
Huge.
That's a problem all throughout society, man. It's the barriers for Indigenous and Black people is the same. It's like they create these barriers so that we never get in. Never mind one person working in there. Never mind trying to move up the ladder. You know, it just doesn't happen unless you create those doors for people to be included in the system. And I think the society is still working on how to make that happen.
What I don't know, like a good question, but I don't know, like when you look at NACA and you look at your guys' clients, what is the biggest business that they're putting forth? And before you answer that, Shannon, what I was I don't know, like Nathan, he's gone out to this Hutterite colony as well. But for those people that have never been to Hutterite colony, I was at one last year over by Lloydminster, and I was getting some stuff made up there, and I started talking. Fort Pitt, and I started talking with the guy. I said, so how many people live in the colony? He says 168. So what does everybody do? Everybody works. 168 people. What do you mean? And they had this 300-foot storefront shop. And he says, step outside. So we stepped outside about 50 feet, and he looked over far left, and he says, you see that first storefront? Yeah. Well, that's a bakery. There's about 5 or 6 people there. The next one next to it, they deal with leather. So there's another 5 or 6 people working there. This one here, they do the promotional items. They do the pens. They do the bunny hugs or the hoodies. They do the coffee cups. And there's 5 or 6 people employed there. At the other end, there is a shop, and it was a tire shop. And then there was a mechanic shop. And I was like, a community of 168 people. How do they even keep the lights on? Because how can you support that economy? And when you look at some of our Indigenous communities, my goodness, all you see is people, and there's like 5,000 people, 10,000 people that live in that community, and all they got are fast food places and junk food and gas stations. And that's where I was kind of thinking, we as Indigenous people need to get involved in a lot of other different things other than the C-stores, which are good. You get the rebates and that, but there's more to an economy than gas and chips.
100% there is, man, 100%. And you're right. That's usually when you go to reserves, you're just seeing a gas station and, you know, maybe another store, but that's it.
So the question I had, Shannon, is just from NACA, who are your guys' clients, and what are some of the more successful, I guess, initiatives that they may have on the go?
Well, we support every size business. Like I said, it's micro and small, so it's not big businesses. There are some big economic development corporations that are supported to do bigger things. I don't have anything off the top of my head. I supported back in the day. I remember Jennifer Podemsky when she started Big Soul Productions, and she did that Moccasin Flats after the. I remember sitting with her in a coffee shop when she was first contemplating starting a business, and going through the same process of just putting it out there and taking a risk and doing it. And now today they supported 500 Indigenous people to work in the film industry and created an Indigenous Actors Guild.
Wow!
You know,
Wow!
Yeah.
Industry
out here, you know, like there's some big things that the network is supporting. I think we can do a lot more. I think that what we got to recognize that our community is deeply traumatized. I remember working in the remote communities and trying to get somebody to think about a business was pretty tough, because when you're thinking about daily survival, it's hard to think about the future. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of our community is still in that state of survival. And we're seeing a transition right now where we have more and more people that are thinking about the future. So they got their basic needs being met. Then they're starting to think about the future, but it's still a transition time. We're still trying to improve. Like you talked about the poverty, it still exists. So if we can do everything at the same time, then we'll see more and more entrepreneurs thinking about starting a business.
And to me, I think that's the secret, or that could be the survival of our future, is looking at creating more entrepreneurs. And, that's the reason why Nathan and I thought about the Facebook page and that, and looking at business and entrepreneurs, and forum where like-minded people can come together and have people like you come on and talk about some of the good work that's being done, not only in Saskatchewan, Alberta, or BC, or Ontario, but right across the country, and a global perspective. And that's something I think that we should always do, is have that global perspective, because we're not stuck here. There's nobody that's ever stuck. Sure, we might go under lockdown, but once those borders open up, then man, it's going to be a whole new game.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait till those borders open up. One can only hope sooner than later, eh?
Yeah.
Raising the profile of entrepreneurship is so important, because the government created policies to prevent us from getting into entrepreneurship. Doesn't provide the access to capital or the mechanisms for us to even get our own access to capital. The Indigenous service budget in '96 was $9 billion. Last year it was $17 billion. Less than 1% is going to economic development initiatives for EDOs and for organizations like ours that help and think about economic development. We need to change that a little bit. We need to invest a little bit more in economic development initiatives so that we can earn our own access to revenue, right? Our own source revenues. Because if we don't do that, the Indigenous services budget is going to be going to $40 billion in the next 20 years. The government's not going to be sustainable. Like, they're not going to be putting that money into our communities. So we're going to even be operating with less. So we got no choice but to start earning our own revenues. So you're seeing a big influx of economic development corporations in communities trying to get it done, right? Trying to create opportunities for our people. So there's a lot of success there. I think we got a lot of economic corporations that are doing some great things. Even we got actually examples all across Canada, and we're coming out with a book that'll show some of those good examples.
Without doubt, Shannon, the future of Indigenous people in entrepreneurship is unbelievable. I know it's so exciting. What you know what you know, you don't know what you don't know. And 40 years ago, compared to where we're at today, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even last year. And the numbers are just exploding, and there's this excitement that's happening, I think, right across the country. And through some of you guys' research in that, are women leading the charge, I guess, when it comes to business ownership and entrepreneurs?
30% of our loans go to women entrepreneurs, but I think it should be higher, because women make up 51% of our population, I believe. So
yeah,
I think we got some work to do there, right? Youth make up about 30% of the loans as well. So those are the two target areas that we're really working towards. We've got a women initiative where we're trying to do more marketing, create a micro fund, and doing providing some tools. And on the youth side, we're doing similar things, creating an online business planner, maybe doing some targeted marketing.
So just a wonderful conversation tonight, and just being able to hit on all these different areas, because there's no right answer, there's no wrong answer, and just being able to even have this conversation is definitely encouraging. Gives me a lot of hope for the future, and I think that's something that Nathan and I know that we both really believe in. And if there's anything that we could do to help NACA and move your guys' agenda forward, that's why we're here too, right? So, and maybe what we will do is look at some of the regional offices. I know here in Edmonton, Rocky Sinclair with Alberta Indian Investment Corporation, and Rob Rollingson down with Indian Business Corporation out of Calgary. And then I forget Terry something or another there with CEIF.
Terry Brozia is with
Yeah,
CEIF.
there we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
But have some of those discussions, and like even from Ontario, and if there's any company that you guys want to highlight as well, Shannon, through some of your maybe personal involvement, and we want to have a chit chat with them, like Podemsky, and looking at being able to kind of see where they started and what got them thinking outside the box instead of like a gas station, and seeing if there's anything that we can do, because I don't like, I think we as Indigenous people are so talented and in all different areas, including the arts. You know, some of the performers that we have with dance, visual, artisans, crafters, anything like that is unbelievable. So, all right, is there any parting words that you want to leave the audience with, Shannon?
Well, no, I just thank you for inviting me on here. I was really fortunate to run across it when I was on LinkedIn, and I joined you, and I asked a couple of questions there because I was very inspired. It's so very inspiring to see you guys doing this kind of thing, because this is the kind of thing we need more of. This is more of the grassroots kind of development. You build up your viewership, and then you get more people interested and thirsty for entrepreneurship. Then they're going to see. Then they're going to start engaging and doing research and actually starting something. So it's really important. And at my level, where I'm trying to advocate at the government and with ministers, I'm trying to get access to capital, more equity, and more business services and tools, so that we don't get lost in the system. They say if you refer somebody two times, you've lost them, or 2 or 3 times you've lost them. And I'm trying to make a one-stop sort of entry point on our website, so that you come into our Indigenous Business Hub, and then you're going to start your journey on developing. You're going to watch your financial wellness course. You're going to do your marketing course. You're going to do your business planning course. You're going to have your modules on there, and then you're going to have your application and be referred to an AFI. So we're going to try to make it a lot easier for anybody that wants to start a business. But stuff we're working on right now.
And that's definitely going to be needed. Sorry, Gino, that's definitely what I was talking about at the beginning of the conversation. And sorry, I just listened because I know that business world that you and Gino are in. I was actually just learning from you two while you guys were talking. That's why I was being so quiet. Usually I'm the one just blabbing away talking, but it was nice to hear, you know, the business side of what goes behind the scenes. And it's not like, you know, roses and everything. There's a lot of battling that you got to do, and political BS, I guess, you got to put up with and do what you got to do. But going back to what you're saying, you're going to have all these steps, and that's exactly what is needed. And that's why I was asking, like, if somebody walks into, you know, example, CEIF, and, you know, they already know what their idea is. They're so passionate about it and they want to become a business. Can they just walk in and, you know, will CEIF take them, you know, through the business plan, the marketing and all that? But now that you were saying that, Dick, you're going to have them come onto your website here and, you know, have those steps, step right 1 to whatever they got to get to the step right. I think that's exactly what needed, because right now I know there's information out there, but it's like you got to go here, then you got to go over here, and you got to go over here.
But what's interesting with that
right now. So I was going to say, right now it's a little bit confusing, because there's lots of people providing a lot of information, lots of organizations providing a lot of information. So that's why I say research right now is good. You can go here and there. But I remember back in the day that BC ABSN, so BC Aboriginal Business Service Network, they had a module system where you went one step at a time through the whole process. Then by the end of it, you understood the whole thing. Then you can write your own business plan and submit it. That's what's lacking right now. So I'm recreating that. We're going to have the module system on there, so everybody can just see what somebody else did and do it yourself. You know.
And actually, I was just going to comment saying that you don't want to walk into an organization where they could take you by the hand and walk you through everything. It's good for you to go out there and learn on your own, because that's where you're going to learn how to hustle, and that's where you're going to learn the market, that industry inside and out, more than anybody that's sitting behind the desk at one of the AFIs.
Yeah,
Hey,
most of the time, what they'll do is probably give you a business planning guide. If you go into the, because they want you to do exactly what you just said. They want you to do the research. They want you to fill out and put your thoughts on paper, and then they'll do a little assessment to see how much work you did. Because it's those that are really serious that are going to get the financing at the end of the day. The ones that demand it and feel entitled to it, you're not going to get the support. You got to show that you really want that. That's really really how it works.
Just again, maybe in closing, Shannon, is that what's one book that you would recommend to somebody that's aspiring to be an entrepreneur?
A book
or ebook.
Oh my gosh, that's what I'm saying. Everybody's writing a book right now. Everybody's got a book. Oh, you know what? Well, actually, for you, I was saying for both of you, if you read Decolonizing Wealth, it's an amazing book talking about how the system is not made for us. Do you know that 95% of all business decisions and business leaders are white males? No,
Wow.
hardly any people.
I believe that.
Never mind Indigenous people, and that's the same for the health sector. That's the same for the education sector. All decisions are made by white people, so we never have a chance to be represented or our views ever considered in developing anything. So, but this decolonizing wealth is more talking about how we can use wealth to heal and grow and be part of the system. So, I'd recommend that one.
Well, on the outside of that question, Shannon, if you're to write a book, what would it be called?
The day I went on IOPPS Indigepreneur
Start
show.
a business in 1 week. Just kidding. So
Hey,
books, man.
Yeah. I think we're gonna wrap it up here. We usually go for an hour or so, and I think you've given us a lot of information. Definitely would like to have you back on the show. Yeah, just let's make this a reoccurring thing. You know, whether you're just dropping in to say hi and give us some more information, or whatever we have in between. But I really thank you for reaching out on my IOPS morning show, and reaching out, and then I reached out on you through LinkedIn. But thank you for joining here, and that's why I'm glad to have my partner here, my co-host Gene here. Like I said, that's his world, the business world. It's not my world, and it's so good to listen to you guys talk and tell us how it is.
Good. Thank you very much, Shannon. Tell Terry I said hi, and we'll hopefully cross paths.
I'll tell him Gino, and he'll know who you are.
Yeah, from Alberta. Yeah, that should work.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Just don't include any swear words.
Okay, all right. Sounds good. Good to you guys. Watch it.
All right, thanks. All right, you guys, there we go. We had
Shannon Metawabin
on there live tonight. So that was actually pretty good. And Gino was texting me. Apparently, I was breathing too hard through the show.
Yeah, through your nose. I don't know what was going on, brother, but
you could hear it? I don't know. I thought I could hear it here, but I guess I couldn't. Must be going deaf.
All good.
But next show, hopefully, Gino's going to have a setup like this. We're sending him to the store to buy some goodies. And we are going to – I hope you guys like the new one. What do you think, Gino? Do you like that?
Yeah, that looks pretty cool.
Pretty tight, eh? Yeah. But you guys, every single Wednesday at 7:30 – I guess I always said 7, but Gino wants to make it 7:30. 7:30 weekly Wednesday night. You can watch the IOPPS Indigepreneur show. If you want to be a guest, get a hold of myself or Gino. I don't know where you guys are watching this, but get a hold of us, and we'd love to have you guys on the show. If you want to talk about your business, if you're in business and you want to talk about what you guys got going on within your organization, also finance. If you guys are financial experts of some kind, get a hold of us. Right?
Else, if you sell widgets, get a hold of us.
If you what?
Sell widgets.
Widgets. Yeah. But with that, you guys, we are out of here. We're gonna see you next show. Tune into my show, IOPPS, a morning show. If you're watching this on the Business and Entrepreneurship group, go to my page, IOPPS Indigenous Opportunities. And yeah, you can find me there for the morning show, Monday to Friday. But with that, Gino, thanks for coming on again. We will see you guys next week with a new guest. And yeah, be safe.
Ahoo.